Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And we are back with our certified yoga therapist. Excited to have Blair Douglas back joining us here from Malachite Yoga. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Jill?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks so much. Great to see you again. For those that may not know, tell us a little bit about Malachite Yoga, the work you do, and then we'll do a little recap of the last time we spoke.
Totally. Yeah. So, like Jill just mentioned, I'm a certified yoga therapist. My company is Malachite Yoga. And basically, it's just kind of like a house for an online platform because about 90 to 95% of my clients actually are all virtual. So I can see clients throughout the country or in different countries. So it's kind of like a landing spot with more information about me and my schedule and things along that line. But like Jill was saying, as a certified yoga therapist, for me, I basically see people as a whole person. So yes, there's this aspect of yoga, but if you kind of throw out the window of what you know about yoga in the sense of a traditional yoga class, we're seeing each person as an individual and whatever their goals they're working towards. And my specialty is chronic pain, functional mobility, and neurological disorders.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And the website, malachiteyoga.com, spelled Malachite yoga.com. And what other form of contact do you want to share?
Yeah, you can always email me as well, which is just Blair at malachiteyoga.com. And Blair is Blair.
Perfect. Thanks so much. So let's do a little recap. The last time we spoke was like, what, 2 weeks ago? We talked about self-care, compassion. Want to just recap that a little bit?
Yeah, and what we spoke about last time is so we have this idea of self-care that a lot of us have gotten, it's become a much more used vocabulary in a lot of people's lives, but there isn't a lot of self-compassion work being done just yet. And a lot of that is just people don't realize there's this whole other aspect of how we speak to ourselves that's really can play a crucial point in how we feel emotionally and physically, just on how we treat ourselves too. Because sometimes we forget
So
we
true.
are our own worst critic sometimes, right? Our harshest critic.
Yep.
And so our discussion last week or 2 weeks ago was actually just kind of based around what does that look like to kind of become aware of what you're saying to yourself? And then how do we kind of pivot and change to try something new and see how that interaction starts to play in with how we feel? But yeah, I what I wanted to kind of talk about today too was where I see a lot of success happening with clients and where sometimes the struggles come up. And this is not even just in my industry, I think it's in other industries as well. Um, and so I thought today might be nice to just chat a little bit because I think sometimes people walking into yoga therapy are like, you're not really sure what to expect.
Yeah.
Because it's a it's not a new medium, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not a well-known medium. So like a lot of times you'll see like a psychotherapist or a PT and people kind of have an understanding of that.
Yeah.
So just to kind of help people have a little bit better visualization of what that looks like, one of the big aspects I see that works really well with clients and it matters on the person. So here's the
Okay.
other big
Sure.
key aspect, right? Between you as a person, me as a person, your partner, your child, all of us have different interactions with how we function throughout the day, how our lives work for us. Some people are very routine, schedule oriented, right? And you have some people that are kind of in the middle. And then you have some people that are like, I have some stuff on a calendar somewhere. I don't really know what's happening in my schedule. And there's kind of all over the board. So, one of the things that we kind of start with for myself and with especially new clients is what does your day look like? Like,
Yeah.
what aspects of your day come in? And what time are you getting up? What's breakfast look like? Like, really the nitty gritty of your day. And some people have a very strict routine, like I was saying, and some people, it's kind of all over the place. So, like, let's say I was to ask you, Jill, do you have a like pretty specific routine built into your days?
Oh, well, as a mom, I told you my routine is basically, well, for no listeners out there don't know, we wake up and I give myself 5 minutes. That's it. That's kind of all I have because to get the kids ready out the door, now it's summer, they're not in camp all the time. So it's, a little bit tricky, but the morning routine is I lay there for 5 minutes. I wake up, I don't touch my phone. I get my sip of water. I lay there, I prepare for my day, and I just think positive thoughts and I breathe and I try to calm before the kids get up, before like things can get crazy and try to calm myself. That's my routine. Then I get them up. And then, yes, the routine of the breakfast and the getting dressed, brushing the teeth. I like it. And now summer comes in and it kind of messes with that routine because now they're sleeping later, right? And then at night they're staying up later, which I don't like. Now they're sleeping later. And I feel like we're just so off. The past month, it's just different. And that's why I started the summer off by doing, hey, your 8:30 p.m. time bedtime. It could be 9:30. Now the 9:30 is turned to 10:30, 11:30. So I don't feel as good without the routine. I'm honestly not feeling well, Blair. Right?
Yeah, no, and that makes complete sense. That's the part that's really hard for people. And a lot of times, so I have clients from the ages of like in their 20s, like early 20s, all the way up until like mid to late 70s to 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So people have drastically different schedules throughout our lifetime, right? We change, things happen. And what I see too for a lot of people, so the transition from coming out of college
Yeah.
into the real world, hard because you went from a structured routine to a non-structured routine because you don't have classes. And
Uh-huh.
so they're trying to figure their stuff out. So whether they're working or not working, especially if you're still in the job hunting space, it just becomes a little jargoned. And then you have this other aspect on the other end, right, of retirement,
Yeah.
where they've had a structured routine for most people, not everybody. Most people have had, I got up at 7 a.m., I was at work by this time, like I done, came home from the office. Like they always had that structured routine. And then they retire and it's like, what do I need to do here? Like, okay, I got
Yeah.
up, but now I don't have this. Or their whole, just like summer break for a lot of parents and kids, everything shifts. So we have this like plate that shifts immediately because it's like, oh yeah, you can stay up a little later because you don't need to be up for school. But then you start to realize, okay, that's actually impacting me too because we don't have this structured
Yep.
space anymore.
Exactly. Yep. So true.
So what I kind of find with my clients is, so we're trying to learn what is your routine? And
Mm-hmm.
is it something that's actually been a stable routine through your life? Is it a new routine or are you on transition? So, like people that have shift scheduled based work who don't control their shifts. So, let's say somebody who has a schedule, they actually don't control it. A lot of times I find for them, those are some of the clients that struggle the most with homework
Yeah.
because it's not a structured base. And that's not to say that some people can't do it. By
Okay.
no means am I saying that. But what I
Yeah.
am saying is I find typically a lot of those clients seem to be the ones that struggle the most to build a routine in that I'm giving them for homework. So just like when you saw PT, I'm sure they gave you home practices. They were like, hey, when you go home, please do XYZ this many times a day, maybe once a day before we see you again. Yoga therapy is very similar in that aspect. We're going to give you work to do at home. It's a self practice. Um, for me, what's nice with having online virtual clients is like I make them a video. They have said video. They can practice with the video, so it gives them a little bit less of an out to get out of like, oh, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing because they always do know what they're supposed to be doing because they have a video of it typically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, But what I do see and where people have a hard time is also homework is not something anybody wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
Even when it's supposed it feels good. Like sometimes it's really hard to just convince yourself like I should do said thing.
Yeah.
And so just having an understanding of that for myself as well going into it. So I learn the person, I learn their personality, and then it's like how do we interlude this into your day? And I plenty of times have given somebody something. I'm like, let's try it in the morning because I feel like it might fit best there. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, let's figure out your schedule. I think this space might be where we can slot that in.
Okay.
Let's try it there. And they'll come back and they'll be like, that didn't work for me. Like I did it twice and I was like, but I felt very stressed because my kids were getting up or something else was happening and I'm like, okay, so let's reslot it. So we'll try it in the evening or we'll try it midday. And like usually we can eventually find the right slot, but it does take a moment. And so that's where people sometimes have a hard time because they're like, well, I'm not even doing the
Yeah.
work. And they're frustrated with themselves. And so that's a big key aspect too when we meet every week is like, how did the homework go this week? But also knowing that like I don't take it personal if you didn't do any of the practices. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't affect me and my own body, whether you did them or not. It's only, it might be impacting you, it might not be impacting you, mattering on the week. So we also have these aspects of life where everybody's human
Mm-hmm.
and things aren't going well. We have a bad week, we were in a car accident,
Yeah.
somebody passed away, I was really sick, all those aspects where it's really easy for then people too to shift and be like, well, I kind of fell off the wagon, didn't get this done, and now I feel really behind. That re-reminding from me sometimes can help. Like, it's okay. You can start at any point. There's no, just like I was saying earlier, I have clients from the ages of their like early 20s to late 70s and 80s.
Wow.
You can meet with me at any point in your life, and it can impact whatever going forward.
Yeah.
And a lot of, some of the people I'm meeting that were older, they didn't need me
Yeah.
before. That wasn't a problem. There wasn't a situation coming up where it was like, this would serve me well to have somebody helping me with my chronic pain or a mobility issue that I now have. And so it's just that re-remembering, like, yeah, because they'll ask me, like, "Oh, no one told me these things." I'm like,
Yeah.
well, yes, some of it's like a learning curve. We're trying to like teach
Mm-hmm.
people. Some it's a lot of new science as well, but some of it is at that point you didn't need anything like this. So giving yourself a little bit of a break to be like, okay, this is new. I'm okay with learning something new. And it's just that trickle effect that I've seen happen with a lot of my clients too, where I had a client today that I met with before I saw you. And I came in and she was having a really rough day. And we acknowledged that. And she's one of my in person clients. And it was, she was telling me, she's like, well, I didn't look this person up and I didn't contact them. And I was like, okay. So I'm like listening. And part of what she was relaying to me is I had put down on a sticky note for her a name of somebody that if she wanted some more information about the topic we were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
this would be a person to look up and she just could get some more information. She didn't need to contact them.
Yeah.
But because she's at a heightened stress level from some other aspects, nothing to do with really our practices together, but just some other life things were happening, her nervous system today when I showed up was already really stressed. And so even though I'd given her, it wasn't even really homework, it was just a suggestion of like, if you, I know we had this conversation, here's another person, like you could watch a TED talk on
Yeah.
who will discuss this topic a little more if that's something that you're curious about.
Wow.
You could see her anxiety the second I walked in and her concern that like maybe I would be upset. And so I've had her for quite a while and I reminded her, I'm like, it's okay.
Aw.
That was it was more just a thing if you want to look it up and you still can, but like that's okay.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. And we did a little debriefing because like I said, we walked in and she was having a really rough day.
Yeah.
And we kind of pivoted because she, when I showed up, was in a ton of pain and was like, I don't feel good. I'm not like everything, my knees hurt, my back hurts. And so it was that readjusting of like, so our normal routine when I get there is we do a little debrief, but we typically just go. Like we go on a
Yeah.
walk because that's what she wants and desires during our sessions. It's not that I'm doing like a specific meditation with her that day or something else. We typically start with a walk depending on the weather because that's when she can get out. She needs to be with somebody else. And so that's what I do. Like it doesn't need to have like we did X yoga moves on it. The walk and the talking is part of the yoga of
Yeah.
just the reconnection with herself. And, it was really interesting because we started off, she was in a ton of pain. She was pretty upset, got everything calmed back down. She asked me about my trip. We started talking about that. I said, okay, do you want to go on a walk? She's like, yeah, I think I want to go on maybe a short one. Let's just see how it goes. Got on a walk, ended up walking like actually an extra half block than we normally do. And we got back to the house and I asked her, I said, so how are you feeling right now? Because like before we left, you were in quite a bit of like pain. She's like, I seem to be feeling okay now. And a lot of that I think was coming, and this is my personal opinion based off of other information about this client and other clients I've had in the past, and just this understanding. She had a really triggering week. She
Oh,
was emotionally in a really tender spot when I walked in. She was upset. I listened, let her process that, asked if she still wanted to do what we normally do. We then left, but then the pain wasn't there because for her it is chronic pain, right? So she doesn't have damage to the tissue anymore. It is specifically like, the system sending not false information, it's sending a lot more alarm bells when it doesn't need to be there.
yeah.
But it was really triggered off this emotional experience she was having based off some other things that happened that week. But us going on a walk and then me talking most of the time, actually, because a lot of times I want her to share stories with me and I try to keep it very upbeat. But what we talked about this time was like my trip to see my aunt
Aw.
and like just what we did while we are there, and like my mom having her kitchen redone and how stressful that's been, and like moving a bunch of furniture and just other stuff that got her mind off of things. But she knows, like, for her, that's part of a routine. When I come, our routine is we go on a walk, and it's something to look forward to. But also there's days where I show up and she's like, I don't know if I can do that today. And I'll always be like, okay, well, let's just check in and see. But when I'm not there, what she's doing is I've made her a bunch of recordings of meditations. And then she also has a set sequence of movements I have her do just like to warm up joints and things along that line. Um, but it's one of those things, like her routine is so different than some of my other clients because, she's in a facility, like a care
Mm,
facility. And sometimes she doesn't have control of her day, right?
yeah.
You don't have control of when they're going to do like a fire drill or, XYZ is happening. And I know this facility is trying to also add in some extra things like, oh, we're going to do this like movement with the guy on the TV. And, he comes on, they're doing like sit and be fit things. And I've told her, I'm like, go ahead and do those. If like more movement is totally fine with me. I think it's great to get extra in. But it's one of those things where you can tell sometimes for an older population, it's also hard. You go from being independent, having your routines, having your set days chosen by you
Yeah.
to not. And today was a good reminder for me when I showed up because I could see for her a lot of that was the real struggle today. Is like I don't have control of where I live
Yeah.
and who's interacting with me and who lives with me. And it was hard. And it's a good check-in point, even as my age, who like I'm hopefully not near a space where I'll end up in a facility like that. But like this re-remembering too, like right now we have control of our routines. And that where I'm kind of going with this is I have younger clients too that sometimes they're like, oh, there's no way I could fit that in. Or they do fit in for a while, but then they're like, well, this and this and this keeps coming up. And I'm like, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But there has to be a point too where we take responsibility of our day
Yeah.
because we have control of our day. And that's something we sometimes forget because we're being bombarded by emails, text calls, all the things happening. And it's hard to tell somebody
It
like, hey,
is
what if I told you you can put your phone on airplane mode for a half an hour and it will probably all be okay?
not the end
That's
of
a
the world.
yeah,
Yeah, but it's
but it's a hard reality of like we've become so accustomed to allowing our own routines and stuff like that to get jostled based off of needs of things. It's not even just a need of a person. Sometimes it's like, I need to take action on this, I need to do this. Where do we find the space then to build our own like sacred routine almost? Just like you have, Jill, in the morning, like you've set that space where you're like, okay, this is my 5 minutes.
yeah.
I'm going to fully embrace that 5 minutes.
Aw.
And our practice, like the practice I'm giving to people, that's my goal as well, is like part of these practices are really for you to have a built-in space in your routine that's 100%
Yeah.
about you.
Yeah.
not your partner, not your children, not your boss, coworkers, friends, you. And it's really, that's a hard concept for people when they really start to think about it, because they're like, oh, I do stuff for me all the time. And I'm like, okay, can you name me all those things you do? And that's when there's a lot of pause, and they'll be like, okay,
You got to think about it. You got me
right?
thinking. Yeah, yeah.
And like,
Wow.
even I'll talk to people that, so say they're single and they live by themselves. Well, when I had a partner, I cooked for myself. I cooked for us all the time, and I like cook these really nice meals. And if they don't have a partner, say they don't have kids in the house, something has changed. A lot of times people stop doing that.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when I lived by myself, I'd cook really well for myself. And then, like, say I'd be dating somebody for a while and I'd be cooking for both of us. And then I'd slip back in this habit if like we split up or something else happened, where I was kind of like, well, why would I make something so elaborate? And then I
Yeah.
realized, I was like, I'm making it for me.
Yeah.
That's why.
Wow.
And so these little routine things that we have sometimes we've built based on other people, acknowledging those as well, and then realizing, okay, what was really working for me? One of those for me was cooking. Like, I should keep cooking for me. Like, I also deserve said nice meal.
So true.
I mean, my partner loves it now because I do cook all the time and he benefits greatly from it.
I'm
But
sure.
those are things I try to teach my clients too, is like, it's okay to make an elaborate meal for yourself
Mm-hmm.
and be like, even though no one else is going to see it, or maybe it is something you're like, I need a little more feedback on it. So you take a picture, you post it on social media, do whatever you need to do. But if it gives you some kind of gratitude to have something, like, even if it's you making it for yourself, I think that is a great gift to give to yourself. And so just learning those aspects of, for myself, my clients' routines, where their routines are really about them,
Yeah.
because that's a big aspect I've learned as well, is if I try to build in and help them build in, let's say, their practice into
Mm-hmm.
a routine that's based around their children or a partner, it rarely, it happens, but it doesn't happen as seamlessly, and they're not usually as comfortable. And I've found that time and time again, where I really have to learn, where is it about you throughout your day?
Yeah. So true.
Where is it truly about you? So like, if I was to give you something, it would probably be specifically like, after your 5 minutes for yourself, I want you to do 3 more minutes of this.
Yes, I need more than that. I agree. Like I feel like it's not enough, but it was something I
Yeah,
started with, and
it's
I could
perfect.
benefit from more though. But yeah, everyone
But
has to
that's
start somewhere. So
exactly. And so, but the big thing is like, I wouldn't give you another 15-minute thing, because you're at 5 right now, which is perfect.
mm-hmm.
If that's what's fitting for you, like, 5 minutes is amazing. I have clients that it's like, I can give them like a minute long thing, and that is
Mm-hmm.
it, because that's where their bandwidth is. And I'm like, totally fine. But for you, like, okay, so you have this 5 minutes. I'm like, could we extend it to an extra three, and would it fit in your day?
Yeah.
And like, would it fit in where you could still have that 3 minutes and actually still be settled enough to not feel like, nope, I don't have that 3 minutes. I need to get up right now. And for some people, they don't have that, and that's totally fine. But I'm just saying, like, if you were my client, Jill, and this is an example, so just people have a better understanding. Part of what we're doing, especially as yoga therapists, is we want to
Yes.
interlace your practice
Mm-hmm.
into your life,
Got it.
because I want you to do this forever, because I want you to have that care and compassion for yourself forever.
Yeah.
It's that part of using yoga as gaining self knowledge and continually wanting to learn about yourself.
Aw. That's what
So
we're here
that,
doing. We're learning, we're growing, and thank you for guiding us. Yes.
exactly. So it's, hopefully that kind of makes sense where I'm going with that, like how important a routine can be, and kind of understanding the difference between a routine that we've built because we have to,
Yep.
based around others' schedules and work life and, family and stuff, and what our routine is for, actually, for us. And the differences may be subtle sometimes, they could be really drastic. And like, are we actually somewhat balanced in getting self routine in? or is it really just something we never even thought about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for enlightening us today. Unfortunately, we're out of time.
Of
Blair,
course.
let's sum it all up and then find out, of course, how we can reach you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's really just about learning your routines. And
Yep.
anytime you see a yoga therapist, they're going to help you try to come up with those things so we can build your practice in.
Right.
And I encourage everybody to think about that of like, what is my routine for myself specifically? Anybody that wants to contact me can contact me anytime at malachiteyoga.com. That's MALACHITE yoga.com. And I always offer free 15-minute consultations. So contact me anytime if you have questions or just want to learn a little more about yoga therapy and see if it's a good fit for you.
You're always so thorough, and I appreciate your guidance and advice and just a soothing voice, clearly knowledgeable, here to help. And again, if someone does have a question, do you offer that initial consultation?
Always, yeah.
I
There's
love
always a
hearing
free
that.
15 minutes. So
That's awesome. We love hearing that. Thank you so much, Blair. Have a fantastic day, and hope you enjoy the rest of your week. I'm so glad we connected
you.
again, and looking forward to the next time. Okay.
yeah, thank
you
you
so
Have
much.
a good
Bye,
day, Jill.
everyone. Thank
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.